Have you ever noticed your biggest battles are not with people, not with situations, but with the voice inside your own head? Stay with me till the end. The last lessons will truly change the way you look at your mind and your life. Dear friends, most of us today are not tired because we work too much. We are tired because we think too much. We lie on the bed, but the mind is running a marathon. We sit with family, but the mind is scrolling worries. We achieve something, yet the mind whispers it's not enough. And slowly, silently, our thoughts begin to control our emotions. Our emotions control our actions, and our actions shape our destiny. But here is the good news. If thoughts can disturb your life, thoughts can also transform your life. So today, let us walk together on an inner journey. 7 lessons, 7 shifts, 7 steps toward mastering your thoughts. And please remember, if you miss the last few lessons, you will miss the heart of the transformation. Most of us spend our entire life believing every thought that enters our mind. We assume that if a thought appears, it must be true. If the mind says, "You're not good enough," we bow down to it. If it says, "You'll fail," we accept it like a prophecy. But have you ever paused to ask yourself one simple question? Who is listening to this thought? The moment you notice a thought, something very interesting happens. There are 2 things present. One is the thought itself, and the other is you, the observer, the listener, the witness. That alone proves something powerful. You are not your thoughts. If you were the thought, who would be observing it? Let me explain this with something very ordinary. When you're standing on the side of the road and cars are passing by, do you jump in front of every car and say, "This is mine"? No, you simply watch them pass. Some cars are beautiful, some are broken, some are noisy, some are quiet, but you remain on the sidewalk. Thoughts are exactly like that. They pass through the mind. Some are positive, some are fearful, some are angry, some are insecure. But the problem begins when we don't stand on the sidewalk. We jump into traffic. A negative thought comes and we say, "This is me." An anxious thought comes and we say, "This is my reality." A painful memory comes and we say, "This is my identity." No, these are just mental events. Temporary visitors, not permanent residents. The mind is a very creative storyteller. It constantly creates narratives based on past experiences, fears, comparisons, and expectations. And because these stories sound convincing, we forget that they are stories, not facts. The mind says everyone else is doing better than you, but it doesn't show you the struggles behind their smiles. The mind says you always mess things up, but it conveniently forgets the times you showed courage, kindness, and strength. Here is the danger. When you believe every thought, you hand over the steering wheel of your life to an untrained driver. And the mind, my friends, is not trained by default. It needs awareness. Spiritual wisdom across cultures teaches one timeless truth. Freedom begins with observation. The moment you step back and watch your thoughts instead of drowning in them, they lose their authority. A thought can shout, but it cannot force. It can suggest, but it cannot command, unless you believe it. Have you noticed that the same thought can have different power on different days? One day someone criticizes you and you laugh it off. Another day the same words break you inside. The thought didn't change. Your identification with it did. That means the problem is not the thought. The problem is the attachment. When you start observing your mind, something beautiful happens. You realize that many thoughts are recycled. The same fear, the same doubt, the same insecurity, different day, same script. And once you see this repetition, you stop taking it personally. You stop saying, "Something is wrong with me," and start saying, "The mind is doing what minds do." This shift creates compassion toward yourself. Instead of fighting the mind, you befriend awareness. Instead of suppressing thoughts, you acknowledge them and let them pass. You say, I see you, but I don't need to follow you. And this is not about becoming emotionless or robotic. You will still feel sadness. You will still feel anger. You will still feel fear. But now you won't drown in them. You will experience them without losing yourself in them. Think of the ocean. Waves rise and fall, but the depth remains still. When you live only on the surface of thoughts, life feels chaotic. But when you connect with your deeper awareness, you realize turbulence is temporary, but consciousness is steady. This understanding is the foundation of mastering your thoughts. Not control, not suppression, but observation. Because once you see clearly, choice naturally follows. And as we move forward, remember this. If you can step back from one thought today and simply watch it, you have already begun the journey. The next lesson will show you why some thoughts keep returning and how what you mentally feed decides who you become. Once you begin to see that you are not your thoughts, another realization slowly dawns upon you. Not all thoughts come with the same strength. Some thoughts appear once and disappear. Others keep knocking on the door again and again. And have you noticed which ones return the most? The ones you unknowingly feed. The mind works on a very simple principle. Whatever you give attention to, it assumes is important. And whatever is important, it keeps bringing back. Think about it. If every time a fearful thought comes, you sit with it, analyze it, replay it, discuss it, worry about it, and lose sleep over it. What message are you giving your mind? You are telling it this matters. Bring more of this. And the mind, being a loyal servant, obeys. People often ask, why do I overthink? Overthinking is not a disease, it is a habit. A habit created by repeatedly feeding the same mental patterns. The mind is like a muscle. Whatever exercise you give it, it grows in that direction. If you constantly exercise worry, you become strong in worrying. If you constantly exercise gratitude, you become strong in peace. If you constantly exercise comparison, insecurity becomes your expertise. And the most dangerous part, we often feed the mind without realizing it. From the moment we wake up, we expose ourselves to noise. News filled with fear, conversations filled with complaints, social media filled with comparison, entertainment filled with restlessness. And then we wonder why the mind feels crowded, anxious, and tired. You wouldn't pour muddy water into a glass and complain that it's dirty. Yet we pour mental junk all day and expect clarity at night. What you consume mentally is as important as what you eat physically. A diet of negativity will never produce emotional health. But here is the empowering truth. You may not control the first thought, but you always control the second one. The first thought is a reaction, the second thought is a choice, and repeated choices become character. A negative thought arises, that is human. Continuing to entertain it for hours, that is training. This is where conscious feeding begins. You start choosing what deserves your attention. You become selective. Not every opinion deserves entry. Not every emotion deserves a stage. Not every thought deserves belief. This doesn't mean you suppress negativity. Suppression only gives it more power. It means you acknowledge it, but you don't nourish it. Just like weeds in a garden. You don't scream at them, you don't panic, you simply stop watering them. And slowly, naturally, they lose strength. Now let me share something subtle but life-changing. Many people try to remove negative thoughts. That struggle itself keeps the mind busy. Instead, spiritual wisdom suggests something simpler: replace the diet. When you feed the mind with higher inputs, lower thoughts naturally weaken. Start the day with silence instead of scrolling. Start the day with intention instead of urgency. Expose your mind to wisdom, not just information. Surround yourself with conversations that uplift, not just entertain. And most importantly, observe what you repeatedly think about when you are tired, alone, or idle. That reveals your unconscious feeding patterns. You see, the mind does not get tired of repetition. We do. That's why the same worry can drain you every day, while the mind brings it fresh each time. When you begin feeding your mind consciously, something beautiful happens. The noise slowly reduces. The volume of unnecessary thoughts lowers. And in that quiet space, intuition starts speaking. Peace is not something you create forcefully. Peace is what remains when mental clutter is reduced. This lesson asks for honesty, not perfection. You will still slip. You will still scroll mindlessly. You will still indulge in unhelpful thinking sometimes. That's okay. Awareness is not about guilt. Awareness is about correction. Every time you notice, I am feeding the wrong thought, and gently redirect, you are rewiring your mind. And here's a gentle reminder. If you think this is powerful, the next lesson is even more practical. Because now we move from what you feed to how you respond when thoughts suddenly hijack you. And that pause, that small pause, can change the direction of your entire life. There is a moment in every situation that decides the outcome. It is not the situation itself. It is not even the thought that appears. It is the tiny gap between what happens and how you respond. Most people live as if this gap does not exist. But those who learn to master their thoughts discover that this gap is sacred. Let me explain. Something unexpected happens. Someone speaks harshly. A plan fails. A memory resurfaces. Instantly the mind reacts. The heart rate increases. Emotions rise. Words rush to the tongue. And before we know it, we have reacted. And later we say, I don't know what came over me. What came over you was not fate. It was the absence of a pause. The mind is incredibly fast. It wants immediate expression. It wants release. It wants validation. But speed is not intelligence. Speed without awareness creates regret. Every regret you carry has one thing in common. At that moment you were unconscious, not bad, not evil, just unaware. Now here is the truth that can save relationships, careers, and inner peace. You don't need to control every thought. You only need to pause before you act on it. That pause may last one breath, 1 second, but within that second lives wisdom. When you pause, something magical happens. You step out of autopilot. The emotional brain loosens its grip. The rational heart regains its voice. And suddenly you are no longer inside the thought, you are watching it. A pause does not mean suppression, it means space. Think of boiling water. When it overflows, you don't shout at it, you lower the flame. The pause is lowering the flame of emotion. Ancient wisdom traditions emphasize silence not because words are bad, but because silence creates clarity. Even modern neuroscience confirms this. A brief pause allows the nervous system to reset. But let me be honest with you. The pause feels uncomfortable at first because the mind is addicted to expression. It wants to react immediately to feel powerful. But that power is borrowed. Real power is restraint. Have you noticed that the strongest people are not the loudest? They are the calmest. Practicing the pause means choosing dignity over drama, meaning over momentary relief. Let me share a simple practice. The next time you feel triggered, don't ask, what should I say? Ask, what is this emotion trying to protect? Often, anger hides hurt. Anxiety hides fear. Judgment hides insecurity. When you pause, you hear this deeper message. And here is the beautiful part. When you pause consistently, the mind slowly learns that impulsive reactions are no longer rewarded. Over time, emotional intensity reduces on its own. You are training the mind to trust awareness. People think mastery is about force. It is not. It is about gentleness. Like training a child. You don't scream. You guide, and remember this. Pausing does not make you weak. It makes you precise. You stop wasting energy on unnecessary battles. The pause also reconnects you with values. Instead of asking, "How do I feel right now?" you start asking, "Who do I want to be in this moment?" That shift changes everything. As this practice deepens, you'll notice something else. The mind becomes less reactive, even in difficult situations. What once triggered you deeply now passes like a mild wave, not because you don't care, but because you care consciously. This is how mastery grows, quietly, invisibly, through small moments of awareness. And now, as we move forward, something even more grounding awaits. Because once reactions soften, discipline enters. And discipline, my friends, is not a restriction, it is the doorway to mental freedom. Many people feel trapped by their mind, not because life is difficult, but because life has no rhythm. When there is no rhythm, the mind becomes restless. When there is no structure, thoughts scatter. And when thoughts scatter, we assume the problem is emotional, but very often it is behavioral. Let me say this gently. The mind loves consistency. It feels safe in discipline. What exhausts the mind is unpredictability, sleeping at random times, eating without awareness, consuming information endlessly, reacting without reflection. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. Think about a river. When it has banks, it flows powerfully toward the ocean. When it overflows everywhere, it becomes destructive. Discipline is not limiting the river, it is guiding it. People say, "I don't like routines, they make me feel trapped." But look closely. Are you trapped by routine, or are you trapped by chaos? An undisciplined life creates constant decision fatigue. What time should I sleep? What should I eat? What should I do now? The mind keeps choosing until it is exhausted. Discipline removes unnecessary decisions, giving the mind rest. When you wake up at a consistent time, half the battle is already won. When you eat consciously, the body cooperates. When you schedule silence, the mind settles. This is not spirituality, this is intelligence. And here is something subtle. Discipline done with love feels like freedom. Discipline done with ego feels like company. Control. The intention matters. Many people try to control the mind directly and fail. But when you discipline the body, the mind follows naturally. A restless body creates a restless mind. A grounded body creates a grounded mind. Even simple disciplines create profound impact. Keeping promises to yourself, limiting what you consume mentally before sleep, creating morning stillness. These are not small things. They shape the inner environment in which thoughts arise. Let me share something honest. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your discipline. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is spiritual. When discipline enters your life, emotions stop controlling your schedule. Values start controlling your actions. And when values guide actions, the mind feels safe. Safety creates calm. A disciplined mind is not a rigid mind. It is a reliable mind. You know you can trust yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of peace. Have you noticed how anxiety reduces when you know you have prepared? The same applies internally. Discipline is preparation for life. This is why monks, athletes, artists, and leaders all value discipline. Not because they enjoy rules, but because they enjoy freedom from chaos. And freedom from chaos is mental freedom. When your life has rhythm, thoughts lose urgency. When your days have structure, worries lose intensity. When your habits align with your values, inner conflict dissolves. You are no longer fighting your mind, you are guiding it. And now, something even more transformative awaits. Because once discipline stabilizes the mind, the heart opens. And when the heart opens, gratitude begins to rewire your entire mental landscape. There is a strange habit the human mind has. It keeps a detailed record of what is missing, what went wrong, what should have been different. It remembers one insult longer than 10 compliments. It remembers one failure louder than 100 efforts. This is not because you are negative. This is because the mind is designed to protect, not to celebrate. But protection without balance turns into pain. Gratitude is not pretending that life is perfect. Gratitude is training the mind to see that life is present. When gratitude enters, something shifts. The same life feels lighter, not because circumstances change, but because perception does. Two people can wake up in the same house, have the same job, the same family. One feels burdened, the other feels blessed. The difference is not luck, it is mental direction. The mind asks, what is lacking? Gratitude asks, what is here? And whatever question you repeatedly ask, the mind faithfully answers. Most people think gratitude is a reaction. I'll be grateful when things improve. But the truth is reversed. Things improve when gratitude becomes a habit. Gratitude rewires attention. Instead of scanning for threats, the mind starts scanning for gifts, and the nervous system responds accordingly. Stress hormones reduce, calm increases, presence deepens. But here is something important. Gratitude must be practiced consciously in the beginning. The mind will resist. It will say, how can I be grateful when things are not okay? And that is exactly when gratitude is most needed. Gratitude is not denial of pain. It is anchoring yourself while pain passes. When you start noticing small things, a breath, a smile, a meal, a moment of silence, the mind learns humility, and humility dissolves entitlement. Entitlement is one of the biggest sources of suffering. The more entitled we feel, the more disappointed we become. Gratitude reverses that cycle. Have you noticed how gratitude naturally reduces comparison? When you are deeply thankful, you stop measuring your life against others. You start respecting your journey. And this is crucial for mental mastery. Comparison creates noise. Gratitude creates grounding. One simple practice can change everything. Before sleeping, recall 3 moments, not achievements, just moments, that brought warmth, learning, or presence. Over time, the mind starts ending the day peacefully instead of replaying worries. Gratitude also reconnects you with something higher than yourself. Whether you call it God, life, or grace, gratitude acknowledges that not everything is self-made, and that recognition brings surrender, softness, and trust. A grateful mind becomes a spacious mind. There is room for joy. There is room for patience. There is room for acceptance. When gratitude becomes your default lens, thoughts lose their sharpness. Life stops feeling like a race and starts feeling like a journey. And now, as this inner softness grows, the mind naturally asks a deeper question. Why am I here? Because a calm mind seeks meaning. The next expansion takes us there, where thoughts find direction through purpose. And when purpose enters, confusion exits. Stay with me. The heart of transformation is very close now. A restless mind is not always a negative mind. Very often, it is a directionless mind. When thoughts have nowhere to go, they start going every way. Worry here, fear there, regret from the past, anxiety about the future. The mind stays busy but not fulfilled. Purpose does something extraordinary. It gives thoughts a direction. Have you noticed that when you are deeply engaged in something meaningful, the mind naturally becomes quiet? Not because you forced it, but because it finally feels useful. Purpose gives the mind a job worth doing. Many people think purpose is something dramatic, a big title, a grand mission, a perfect calling. But purpose is much simpler and much closer. Purpose is the answer to one question: Why do I want to live consciously today? When that answer is missing, the mind looks for stimulation. When that answer is present, the mind looks for contribution. An idle mind doesn't rest, it worries. A purposeful mind doesn't worry much. It prepares. Purpose anchors you in the present while guiding you toward the future. It gives meaning to effort and patience to struggle. When you know why you are walking, you don't complain about the distance. This is why two people can face the same hardship. One breaks, the other grows. The difference is not strength, it is meaning. When your thoughts align with something larger than your ego, service, growth, learning, love, they stop circling around me, mine, and my fears. They start moving outward, and outward moving thoughts are lighter. Purpose also disciplines desire. Without purpose, every distraction looks attractive. With purpose, clarity arises naturally. You don't have to fight temptation, you simply don't have time for it. And here is a beautiful truth. Purpose does not remove problems, it makes problems meaningful, and meaningful struggle yields lighter than meaningless comfort. Many people ask, how do I find my purpose? Start smaller than you think. Purpose begins with responsibility. Doing what is in front of you with sincerity. Being present where you are, serving who is near you, growing where you are planted. Purpose grows through action, not thinking. When you start living purposefully, thoughts become allies instead of enemies. The mind stops sabotaging because it feels aligned. Inner conflict reduces because values and actions move in the same direction. And when purpose matures, something even deeper happens. You realize that even with purpose, not everything is in your control. Effort is yours. Outcomes are not. This realization leads us to the final, most liberating shift. Surrender. This is the lesson that frees the mind from its last burden. Even after awareness, even after discipline, even after gratitude and purpose, the mind still holds on to one heavy burden. The illusion that it must control everything. And this illusion is exhausting. The mind constantly asks, what if? What if things go wrong? What if I fail? What if people misunderstand me? What if life doesn't turn out the way I planned? This constant attempt to control outcomes is the deepest source of mental unrest. Most of our anxiety comes from carrying responsibilities that were never ours to begin with. You can plant a seed, water it, protect it, nurture it, but you cannot command the rain or order the sun. And yet we try. Surrender is not giving up. Surrender is giving over. It is doing your best and then trusting life, trusting time, trusting a higher intelligence to do the rest. People fear surrender because they think it means weakness. In reality, surrender is courage. It takes immense strength to say, I will act sincerely and I will accept gracefully. A surrendered mind is not passive. It is peaceful. It is deeply active without being anxious. Have you noticed how much lighter life feels when you stop fighting reality? When you stop replaying, resisting, and resenting what already is? Acceptance does not mean approval. It means understanding that fighting the present moment only multiplies pain. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. The mind suffers when it argues with reality. Surrender teaches the mind humility, the understanding that life is bigger than personal preferences. And humility dissolves fear, because fear is born from the belief that everything depends on me. When you surrender outcomes, something magical happens. You become fearless in effort. You give your best without obsessing over success or failure. You speak honestly without needing approval. You act ethically without demanding recognition. This is true mental mastery. A surrendered mind rests in faith, not blind faith but lived faith. Faith that life is not random. Faith that growth is happening even when you don't see it. Faith that delays are not denials and struggles are not punishments. When you trust that life is teaching you, not testing you, the mind relaxes, and in that relaxation, clarity arises. Many spiritual teachers say the same thing in different words. Do your duty, leave the rest. When you live like this, disappointment loses its power. Because your happiness is no longer hostage to outcomes. You start measuring life differently. Not by how much you gained, but by how consciously you lived. Not by how many applauded you, but by how truthful you were. Not by how perfect things became, but by how present you remained. This surrender also softens the ego. You stop taking everything personally. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't break you. You remain centered. And this is where the journey completes its circle. You began by realizing you are not your thoughts. You learn to feed the mind wisely. You practice pausing instead of reacting. You created discipline to stabilize chaos. You rewired perception through gratitude. You gave direction through purpose. And now, you release control through surrender. This is mastery, not domination, not suppression, but alignment. So remember this, my friends. A peaceful mind is not one that controls everything. A peaceful mind is one that trusts deeply, acts sincerely, and lets go gracefully. Begin today. Do your part with love. Think consciously, act responsibly, and surrender the rest with faith. Because when you put trust first, fear naturally takes the last place. And when the mind rests in faith, life flows with meaning, joy, and quiet strength. So remember, my dear friends, life does not ask you to control everything. Life only asks you to show up consciously. You are not here to win every battle in your mind. You are here to choose awareness over chaos, faith over fear, and responsibility over complaint. Do what is in your hands with sincerity. Think thoughts that uplift your soul. Act in alignment with your values. And then place the rest gently in the hands of the divine. Because when you trust life, life starts trusting you back. True peace is not found when everything goes your way. It is found when your heart learns to say, I have done my best and I surrender the rest. Walk forward with courage, live with purpose, think with clarity, and let faith quietly guide every step you take. That is not just success, that is a life well lived.